Hello, everyone, and welcome to this virtual open session for the social sciences at Pace. My name is Nigel Kettley, and I'm University Associate Professor in Education and Social Science, and I'll be chairing this event this evening. My job is based at Pace, but I have broader responsibilities in the university. This session is essentially an informal opportunity for you to ask us questions about the courses in the social science portfolio, questions about the application process, and the student experience here at Pace. The session is being recorded, so it will appear on our website after the presentation. It will also be made available on our social media sites, and it will be circulated to everybody who is attending this evening so they can look back on it if they would like to do so. If you have any questions that arise during the presentation, please feel free to place those in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and then we'll attend to those questions at the end of the session. What I'd just like to do now is take an opportunity to get each of my colleagues to introduce themselves in turn. So, Raj, over to you.
Thank you so much, Nigel. My name is Dr. Raj Bali. I am the course director for the Undergraduate Certificate in Strategic Business and Management.
Julia.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Julia Manjarashina, and I'm the course director of the Certificates in Cognitive Psychology at Cambridge Base.
Thanks, Julia. Zeynep.
Hello, I'm Zeynep Klulo. I'm the course director for the Certificate in International Relations.
Thanks, Zeynep. Victoria.
Hello, my name's Victoria Stewart-Jolly. I'm the course director for the Diploma in International Relations.
Brilliant, thank you. And we're also really fortunate to be joined this evening by two students, one former, one current student. Nella, do you just want to say hello?
Hello, everybody. I'm Nella, and I'm the former student under Raj's course, Strategic Business and Management.
Brilliant, thanks, Nella. And Clara.
Hi, I'm Clara. I'm currently reading the Lent term of the Certificate in International Relations, and I appreciate the opportunity to contribute to today's event.
Brilliant, Clara. We're pleased to have you. Thank you. Next slide, please. Great. So the courses that we're going to discuss in the social science portfolio in this session are the Undergraduate Certificate in Sociology, Politics, Psychology, the Certificate in Strategic Business and Management, Certificate in Cognitive Psychology, Certificate in International Relations, and the Diploma in International Relations. And what we're going to do is provide you with a high-level summary of each of these courses, just outlining their key features, mode of assessment, who's attracted to them, why they're interesting, etc. And each of my colleagues, who is the course director, will take it in turn to say a little bit about their individual certificates. Next slide, please. A few words about PACE as a part of the University of Cambridge. Many people don't really know about PACE, and it's often thought of as the Cinderella service of the University of Cambridge. But as an organisation, we've existed for 150 years. We were founded by James Stewart many years ago, and we exist to make University of Cambridge courses accessible and open to members of the public. So we have the mission of taking university scholarship to a broader audience. As part of the University of Cambridge, we actually operate independently of the college system and other faculties and departments. So to use the Cambridge terminology, we're a non-school institution, but that gives us great flexibility in terms of the types of courses we can provide, the fact that we can make our courses open access, we can deliver some courses online, and it means that we welcome thousands of learners every year from over 100 separate countries. So we have built a global community of online learners to try and create scholarship broadly around the world. We run everything from short courses to postgraduate degrees. So we have some short courses which are open access, taught at the weekends. Then we have award-bearing certificates, diplomas, and advanced diplomas, all the way up to full part-time master's degree. The emphasis of the department as a whole is taking scholarship to people, making it accessible, making it appealing and relevant, in the belief that, Cambridge shouldn't be isolated, but life continues, and so should everybody's learning. The next slide, please. Just to say a little bit about the types of courses that we're going to speak about this evening and consider which one of these courses might be right for you. So we're going to talk about 4 undergraduate certificates. And undergraduate certificates are introductory courses to a subject or discipline. They're offered at first-year undergraduate level. They're 60 credits, run part-time over 9 months, and they're online. So an undergraduate certificate is an online introduction to a given subject. But when you're thinking about online, don't just think, oh, you're isolated doing it alone, because all online courses combine a mixture of pre-recorded sessions, which you self-study, but a high number of live teaching sessions where you get an opportunity to mix with colleagues, etc., and build that community I was talking about earlier. No formal entry requirements for a certificate, they're completely open access. Our second-year equivalent courses are called undergraduate diplomas, and once again, they're taught over 9 months online, and they're 60 credits. But unlike a certificate, a diploma is more specialized, more advanced, and therefore it does have entry requirements. Usually, for example, if you're taking a diploma, you would be expected to have an international equivalent of a certificate so you can progress to the diploma, or you can have relevant professional experience, which counts as the equivalent. One thing that's not on this slide that it might be good to flag up, students who've studied undergraduate diplomas at Pace can go on to study an advanced diploma in research theory and practice, or in the arts and sciences, where they get an opportunity to do their own research project. Final thing about thinking about what is right for you, do think about the English language requirements of our courses. All of our courses are intellectually reasonably stimulating and challenging. They're taught in English and they require a good level of fluency in English from you. So, for example, in terms of IELTS score, you would need an overall score of 6.5 with no element in that package less than 6. So think carefully about what's right for you. Next slide, please. Okay. This is my last slide for a while. I'm actually the academic director for the portfolio, but I'm also the course director for the certificate in Sociology, Politics and Psychology. Just to say a little bit about this course, we've run this on and off for many years at Pace, and it seeks to give students an introduction to the social sciences. So we're trying to produce an interdisciplinary understanding of sociology, politics, psychology, which starts off looking at sociology to explore things like social inequality, social theory, how society is constructed. The course progresses in term 2 to an analysis of politics, in particular focusing on issues of power, ideology, and the state. How do states come into being? What are different political ideologies? Who has theorized power? And what does that mean? And in the final unit, we talk about an introduction to psychology in terms of, for example, how we develop our personal identities, how our social behavior is influenced through various processes. Over the years, we found that the audience for the sociology, politics, psychology courses tend to be incredibly diverse, very inclusive, very international, and it attracts people who really want to empower themselves and learn about society so they can be an active citizenship in it. You know, lots of people are motivated by issues of personal enrichment, personal development, and some by a desire to build their employment portfolio in the public sector or voluntary sector or non-governmental organisation sectors. Like all of our certificates, teaching methods on the certificate in sociology, politics, psychology are really quite diverse. We use a mixture of pre-recorded sessions, live teaching sessions, so we can get people talking in relatively small groups, and independent study. And the course is assessed through a mixture of assignments, journal article reviews, essays, writing a project proposal in psychology. So if you're interested in this, I would really encourage you to take a look at the website, and if you have any further questions, you can drop me a line. This would be a good point where I hand over to Raj to speak a little about the certificate in strategic business and management. Next slide, and over to Raj.
Thank you so much for that, Nigel. Yes, so as we said before, I'm the course director for this particular course, this particular offer. So this is, again, a part-time online certificate course. It's developed in close collaboration with the Judge Business School and provides students with a comprehensive introduction to strategy, accounting and finance, and marketing. It's designed for students seeking to understand really why businesses succeed or fail, and to develop practical and transferable skills for career progression in management and leadership, as the case may be. It will equip students with the ability to analyze, to critically assess different aspects of business, including, of course, financial, and give you some strategy-based capabilities, which are very important nowadays to enhance decision-making and have a professional impact across a range of different organizational contexts. We deliver, as with most of our courses, a blend of live online sessions, group discussions, VLE activities. This is an acronym you'll hear quite often. A VLE is a virtual learning environment. Essentially, this is our online platform. And you will need to carry out some independent study, of course, as well. For this course in particular, we offer 2 guest speakers per term. Now, students really love this aspect and gain much value from these sessions in particular. So the screen is obviously showing a little bit more about each sort of actual unit. I shan't go into too much detail over that, but it's about really reality. There is a difference, as we all know, between theory and practice. And during the sessions, we want you to be as relaxed as you possibly can be, because it's your job, as much as mine, to challenge theory as best we can. Thank you so much. Back to you, Nigel.
Brilliant. Thanks, Raj. Could we have the next slide, please? That takes us neatly over to Julia, who will say a few words about the certificate in cognitive psychology. Julia, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks again. So this certificate gives you a structured introduction to cognitive psychology and neuropsychology. So the scientific study of how the mind works, covering core areas like memory, language, perception, and executive functions, such as intelligence, social cognition as well. Alongside the theory, we also introduce key concepts in research methods and statistics. So you develop the confidence to understand how cognitive research is designed, run, and interpreted, not just the headline findings. The course is organized in 3 units across the year. So history, core themes, and methods. This sets a foundation where the field comes from, how we ask scientific questions about the mind, and how cognitive psychology connects the brain and behavior. And then memory, language, and perception. We explore classic and contemporary research on how we perceive the world, how we process language, and how memory works, and why it can fail sometimes. Executive functions, intelligence, and social cognition, we look at attention and control, problem solving, intelligence, and how we understand other people, skills that matter in real life, decision making, and everyday behavior. In terms of who's the course for, this certificate works well if you're curious about the mind and the behavior, if you want a reliable, solid introduction that helps you apply key ideas to work, study, and everyday thinking. People often take the course for professional development, academic development. It's a stepping stone towards further study in areas like psychology, neuroscience, education, and mental health. And a key feature of the learning experience, as was said before, is the blended online format. So you'll have a mix of pre-recorded lectures that you can work through flexibly and live sessions as well. So interactive discussion, activity, and guided teaching. Across each unit, there are day schools delivered online, and they are designed to help you consolidate the content, ask questions, and practice the kinds of academic skills you'll use in the assignments. So in terms of assignments, those are evidence of your learning in a realistic way. So across the course, you'll complete 5 assignments, which typically include essays, an article summary, presentation, and a lab-style research report. So you finish the year with a portfolio of work that reflects both theory and research, conceptual understanding, as well as academic scientific writing skills. So if you are wondering what takes away, what would take away from the course is not just, knowledge about cognitive psychology, but is plenty of that. So critical thinking, research literacy, and the ability to evaluate claims about brain and behavior that you can transfer, those skills you can transfer well into many careers, into further academic study. So I will be obviously happy to answer to your questions later on. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. Next slide, please. Taking us swiftly on to Zeynep and the certificate in international relations. Zeynep, over to you.
Thanks, Nigel. So I'm going to say a few words about the certificate in international relations. This course is structured around 3 core units. So the first unit is an introduction to international relations, and we sort of take a journey through the key theoretical approaches towards IR, and you'll develop an understanding of the different sort of lenses, if you like, that we often use in the discipline to make sense of world affairs. And you will gain practice in applying these theories to real world events, and we'll also study core IR concepts such as sovereignty, conflict, power, and cooperation. And then in the second unit, we will be looking at international institutions and conflict more closely. So key international organizations that we consider will include the United Nations and the International Courts of Justice and the International Criminal Court. We'll also be looking at regional organizations such as NATO and the OSCE, and we'll be considering potential drivers of conflict, as well as the implications and the sort of wider repercussions of conflict. And we really take a broad approach towards security and evolving security challenges. So we will start by looking at sort of traditional understandings of security, things relating to military challenges and economic conflict maybe, and then we broaden this out to reflect more contemporary developments. So we'll be looking at climate security, terrorism, and cybersecurity, and also AI and ethics. So it's really topical. And then in the third unit, we look at regional politics. So we really shine a light on political developments that are occurring in different parts of the world. And the regions that we consider include Europe, Russia, India, the Middle East, and towards the end of the course, we look more at Africa, Latin America, China, and also the polar regions and outer space. Thinking about the audience and who this course is for, it is designed for people who are interested in world politics and people who want to develop tools for understanding in a more sort of systematic way the interactions between countries, international organisations and conflict. And students who complete the programme might go on to work in government, international organisations or non-governmental organisations. And I think a key benefit of studying the course is that students really develop their critical thinking skills. And towards the end of the programme, you would have practiced many times through the various assignments how to construct and communicate effective critical thinking in writing and also verbally. Think a little bit more about the teaching and the assessment methods. This covers a range of different techniques, which some of which my colleagues have already mentioned for their respective programs. So we combine pre-recorded lectures with lots of live seminars, and the live seminars are really an opportunity for you to come together with other students and also the lecturer, and to develop your own opinion on the key concepts that we cover in the lectures, and really apply the teaching to real world events and topical developments that you'll be hearing about and that you'll be interested in from the media and from around your environment. In the seminars, we sometimes have debates, and we always have very interesting and constructive discussions around world affairs. And we have a sort of varied assessment methods, including essays, journal article reviews, comparisons, also a presentation and an extended essay piece. And I look forward to answering any questions that you might have about the programme.
Brilliant. Thank you, Zeynep. Next slide, please. And last but not least, this brings us over to the Diploma in International Relations, and Victoria will say a few words about her course. Victoria.
Hello, lovely to speak with you all, and thank you very much, Nigel. The Diploma in International Relations very much builds on the groundwork which is established in the certificate. We look at many of the same issues, but from a slightly more detailed perspective, and slightly more in depth. I think this is my 7th year teaching this content in one form or another. And whenever I started teaching these programs, I don't think we could have imagined that we would end up watching live the unfolding of theories as it is happening on television, and those theories as they relate to power and how politics utilizes or implements power, conflict in the international stage, how international law interacts with power or doesn't, as the case may be, increasingly. It was once upon a time that this was an academic pursuit. Now it's explaining in real time what we're watching in front of us. There are 3 units: international relations in theory and practice, building, as I said before, on the content of the certificate, to bring a really in-depth understanding of how international relations theories work and assist people in interpreting what they're watching in front of them. Then we're looking at sovereignty, security, and power. And while I do a fair amount of the teaching on the program, my background is formally with the UN before I decided to segue into academia. I'm also joined by a fairly wide range of guest lecturers who look at who are more specialist in areas of security, area studies, law, and conflict. And then we get to our 3rd module, which is the end of history, ? Climate change and other global threats. Little did we think that the other global threats would be quite the way they are at this moment in time, meaning that this diploma is probably about as timely an exercise as you can possibly have. Students attend 6 what we used to call back in the day residential weekends. Now, of course, they're conducted by Zoom and remotely, but 6 weekends over the course of a year where they have live teaching seminars and lectures, debates and interaction with other students on the course, as we take each weekend as an opportunity to discuss in detail the issues raised in recorded lectures and in the readings which are assigned, and the reading lists are fairly extensive. The assessment is very similar again to the certificate in so much as blogs, essays, book reviews, but with that aspect of diploma studies, which is looking at slightly more detailed and in-depth knowledge is expected from students at this point. For students who complete the course, there's been a fairly high rate of students continuing with their education either through master's programs or enrolment in full-time undergraduate and full-time education, which is not uncommon. I've had master's students go on to a wide range of institutions, including Oxford and Cambridge, as well as I think we've had representation in most of the Russell Group universities at either undergraduate or master's level, depending on what the aspirations are of the students, of course. I think that gives us a potted understanding of the diploma. I'll look forward to your questions.
Brilliant. Thank you, Victoria. That really concludes the summary of the different courses. But at this point, we're going to actually talk about the student experience. So next slide, please. What I would like to emphasize before handing over to two of our students is what we're trying to do here in the social science portfolio is build an online community of practice. And what that basically means is a group of highly motivated people returning to study, often new disciplines which they haven't looked at before, where they can actually learn through sharing ideas with their tutors, with their fellow students, in a way which is supportive, interactive, but challenging, and just take joy and pleasure in that learning and that sharing of experience and of knowledge. But what I'd like to do for a while is just ask two of our students and former students, what's it actually like to study on a PACE course? So Nella and Clara, over to you. Perhaps Nella, you could say a few words first about what it's like to study on a PACE course and how you found it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Nigel. For me, PACE course was something so invaluable because it has really changed the trajectory of my career altogether. So I'm somebody that's coming from a STEM background in neuroscience that always wanted to go into scientific communication, and I always lacked that business experience. And through this course, I was really able to get that background and a deeper dive into business that I was not previously aware of. I was not able to get anything like this before in my previous studies. So this knowledge has helped me get this international career that I'm currently on as a young professional. I'm currently working gardener, all thanks to PACE and the knowledge that I have acquired. And now I'm transitioning to a different role in scientific communication, something I've always dreamed of. So for me, PACE not only encouraged me to get out of my shell and start thinking differently in a bit more creative ways, but it also allowed me to meet many international people that have so many different perspectives and that I'm still in touch with, and we still support each other in personal and professional endeavors. So I really do encourage you guys, if this is something that you are thinking about, for me, it's definitely like 10 out of 10 experience that I would wish everybody can experience at least once in their lifetime.
Thanks. Could I just ask you one follow-up question? You've told us about changing career, networking, etc. But what was it actually like to be on the course and do the studying? How did you find the experience of the teaching, the learning, the interaction?
No, thank you so much for that question, Nigel. For me, I found it very, very good because when I started this course, I was already working. And this course really allowed me to work alongside studying. So this was a part-time course that allowed me to do this outside of my working hours. with this course, we were able to meet so many different speakers. As Raj mentioned, you have so many, like every second week, you have a different key speaker that is going to go into deeper dive into the actual course or the topic that you're currently looking at. And I really liked discussion groups. That's not something I was used to, that really sharing my opinion about what we learned and really testing your knowledge, like at that second, like if you have been paying attention. So for me, that was really, really encouraging to really let me think throughout the class, but also outside of class during the assignments that we had to do in the end of the modules. I hope that answered your question, Nigel.
No, that's great. Very helpful. Thank you. And over to Clara. Clara, in terms of your experience, what was it like studying, or what is it like studying on a PACE course?
Yes, thank you so much. So for me, the certificate in international relations has been a thoroughly rewarding academic experience with a positive network of different lecturers and a very supportive cohort of learners from all around the world. I was initially drawn to this course because the structure of the coursework allows learners to study a significant portion of the academically rigorous course material independently. And this sort of flexible nature has allowed me to accommodate my current mandate with the United Nations. So I currently hold mandates with a United Nations Science Policy Interface Platform, as well as the UNFCCC Technology Executive Committee and UNICEF. But my cohort includes students with very diverse backgrounds. For example, we have a student in engineering, a student who works in technology, and many other diverse fields. So there's a very much an environment of communal learning that is created by the tutor, as well as the guest lecturers and the students.
If it's not a sort of excessively challenging question, what have you found difficult about the course, and how have you come to terms with those things that were difficult?
Yes, absolutely. So I think initially starting this course, the thing that was most difficult was obviously there were topics that I wasn't as familiar with. And so it's a broadening of a mindset, I would really say. And I would say that's true for all of the students, where there are certain things where you are comfortable with it, and there are some things that you're not as comfortable with. And just learning what those things, that willingness to learn and that willingness to fail or to sort of perpetuate your own ideas and be informed by other students and their life experiences is one of the ways that I would say is the most important thing to get over that initial hurdle.
Brilliant, thank you. There will be an opportunity to ask more questions of current and former students at the end of the presentation. We're nearly there. So please feel free to type any questions you have in the Q&A function, and I'll moderate the questions at the end. Next slide, please. This brings us on to an overview of the early enrolments benefit package that PACE offers to try and encourage students to enroll a little earlier than the deadline. And my colleague Callie is going to speak about this for us. So Callie, over to you for a few minutes to speak about the early enrolment benefits package.
Thanks, Nigel. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are based in the world, everybody. I'm only going to take a couple of minutes of your time. So just to reintroduce myself, my name's Callie. I am one of the student enrolment coordinators here at Professional and Continuing Education. And as I'm sure you're already aware and have heard from our academic colleagues this afternoon, we are dedicated to making undergraduate learning with us as accessible as we can. So as well as offering flexible online part-time study, we're now giving students the opportunity to receive £150 off of their course fees when they enroll early. So if you book your place on a PACE undergraduate course before the 30th of May this year, a £150 early enrolment offer will automatically be applied to your booking. And if you've been considering or looking at other bursaries or concessions that we have available through PACE, you'll be pleased to know that you can actually combine the £150 concession alongside other eligible concessions and bursaries. So not only will you get the £150 off of your course fee, you'll also gain access, well, early access to our undergraduate resource area on the virtual learning environment. So I know the VLE has been mentioned a couple of times during the session, but the undergraduate resource area is a separate virtual learning environment space from your course specific VLE space. And within the undergraduate resource area, you'll be able to connect with peers that are on your course or that are on other undergraduate courses through early engagement activities. You'll be able to listen in on talks delivered by our academic colleagues, and you'll actually be able to watch some selected bite-sized lectures that have been produced by our academic colleagues as well. In addition to that, you'll have access to start exploring some of the University of Cambridge's online library materials. And within that, you'll find a curated set of study skill resources from one of our partner colleges at the University of Cambridge. And those set of resources really are available to kind of support your academic skills development. And it includes topics such as note-taking, remote learning, and the responsible use of AI, and lots of other different topics. And in addition to that, you'll also have access to some free short online courses that are offered through one of our partner organisations. So essentially what we're trying to do is really provide you with a simple way to save a little bit of money if you enroll early, help you settle in, but most importantly, really feel confident and prepared before your course begins. So my colleague has posted a link to some more information about the early enrolment offer. So if you'd like to know a little bit more about that, follow that link. But if you do have any questions at all, please do feel free to contact myself or people in my team, in the enrolment team, and you can contact us using the contact us form on our website. You'll also be sent some communications after this session. I think tomorrow you can reply to that, and that will come through to myself and my colleagues in the enrolment team as well. So I will finish there. I'll hand back over to you, Nigel, but I hope you enjoy the rest of the session.
Great. Thanks a lot, Callie. That was really clear. Next slide, please. Okay, so drawing towards the end of the presentation, we get to next steps. I think the important thing to point out is if you have any questions, you should feel free to contact enquiries@pace.cam.ac.uk, and they'll be able to address questions. If you have any academic questions about the courses covered in the social science portfolio, if you email me in the first instance, and that's to nck20@cam.ac.uk, then I'll answer those questions that I can, but clearly I'm not an expert in everything we cover in the portfolio, so I'll sort of triage and pass on your questions to other members of the team and the respective course directors. We also offer in the social science portfolios quite a broad range of weekend and summer school programs. I'm plugging two here because I'm teaching them. Divided Kingdom, Social Class and Inequality in Modern Britain in July, which is a weekend course that usually recruits pretty successfully. And Transforming Society, Economics, Politics and Social Policy, which is a 2-week course over the summer. And last year it was an absolutely fantastic experience because we had about 28 students from all over the world. And it was a really engaging, fun and demanding group, but I loved teaching it. I think they got a great deal out of it. Next slide, please. The other thing I should have said on that slide really is remember the PACE website. Many of the issues and questions that you'll raise are covered by the PACE website. So it's important to remember that. Do feel free to have a root around on the website and take a look at what's there. The important message is really to conclude this presentation. Thank you to my colleagues and a special thank you to all of the students who've presented. But also, if you do have questions, please feel free to direct them to enquiries at PACE. And remember, the application deadline is the 2nd of September 2026. At that point, we've come to the end of our presentation, and now I'm going to moderate some questions, and we have a reasonably broad range of general and specific questions. I'll direct these to colleagues or students as appropriate. The first one, funnily enough, is for me. Is Dr. Kettley the tutor for sociology, politics and psychology? Easy answer, I teach the sociology unit. And my colleagues, Karina and John, teach respectively politics and psychology. Question, what is the percentage of self-paced work versus live classes and strict deadlines? That was from Audra. Does anyone fancy having a go at that one? What is the percentage of self-paced work versus live classes and strict deadlines? Raj, let's see if you can have a go with that one.
Thanks, Nigel. Okay. I can only speak for my course of as one would expect. This may differ slightly amongst the different courses that we have in the portfolio. Self-paced work, I would guess it's about 50% or so at least would be self-paced. Live classes for my course were on Friday afternoons 4 times per term. Deadlines, strict deadlines. Oh, that's a loaded phrase there. Yes, we try and teach you some discipline as well. So please try and have your inbuilt project manager and make sure that that person comes out, please, if you can. We understand that sometimes life gets in the way, so you can ask for extensions, but please try to make these the exception rather than the norm, please.
Brilliant.
I don't know whether
Thanks,
Nella
Raj.
wants to add anything to the self-paced work or anything, because she's better placed because she's on the other side of the fence, of course. And Clara, of course.
Raj, I must say I agree with you completely. So I would say there was like 2 to 4 hours of in-person lessons a week. And then we had like self-paced learning. And I would say it depends on the topic. So for example, as somebody that doesn't come from the background, some topics for me, I had to study a bit more maybe than other students. So I would say it's very personal. But I think Raj put it very well. So it's between like those 40-60% of like doing the work by yourself, more if you require more, of course, but I think 50% is a good estimate, Raj.
Okay.
Thanks, Nella. Clara, what about you? What is your experience in terms of the percentage of self-paced work versus live classes?
Yes, thank you so much. So I would say from my perspective, the course is delivered through 1 hour recorded lectures, usually 6 per term, plus assigned texts and seminar discussions on the weekend, sessions on theories, and ideas and events are raised. I'm not certain about percentages. I can only give you a rough estimate.
Guesstimate, yes.
A large portion of the time is reading and your own sort of reflections and building that towards the essays and the assignments. So I would say that's a good percentage of the time, maybe 75% in my case. There are students who study more or less within my cohort, but I would say for me it's about 75%.
Great, thanks, Clara. And now a question really for our international relations representatives. So I'll address this both to Zeynep, Victoria, and Zeynep, perhaps you would want to answer it first just to make sure we're in decent order. Question, what are the major benefits of the international relations courses, and what advice would you give someone who hopes to take it on?
Major benefits, I think one of the most important things we do is teach students approaches for making sense of world events. And we early on in the course, we start by learning about IR theories, as they're called. And we also encourage students to develop an understanding of the kind of assumptions that underlie their own perspectives towards world events. So I think that's one of the most important benefits to take away, and I hope that by the end of the course, students would have gained a better understanding of the kind of multiple different perspectives that one can take for making sense of what's going on in the world. And I think another benefit, as we've kind of touched upon, and as Clara mentioned as well, who's studying the certificate, is the opportunity to interact with a very diverse cohort of students and really sort of learn from each other and have meaningful conversations about what's going on in the world. And I think through that experience, students hopefully develop a better understanding of different approaches and also of their own positionality.
Brilliant, thank you. Victoria, your thoughts?
Yeah, building on everything that Zeynep has just said, which stands also for the diploma, but I would highlight that we really do focus on critical thinking. There's no such thing as the representation of an idea in international relations that is politically neutral. And one of the things that students are really encouraged to be extremely mindful of is that every single thing that they engage with has a position and a stance. And that the creation of their own understanding of the world is as important as understanding how the theories sit and how they sit within a history and how that history assists us in understanding what we're looking at. I think, I mentioned this in my own presentation, but we are living through an absolutely unprecedented time when I have heard commentators quite rightly say things like we are in a post-truth world. It doesn't mean to say that there isn't truth. It just means that it is so blurred in relation to how we understand and how we are presented with fact or absence of fact in the current day arena. And the diploma particularly aims to give students the skills so that they can cut through a lot of that noise. And if not entirely get to a truth, because God only knows what the hell that is, but at least to subjectively assess what it is that they're seeing in front of them and to try and make head nor tail of it, although that is a bit of a moving feast at the moment. That answers your question.
Brilliant, thanks. Clara, do you have anything to add to that? What are the benefits of international relations and what advice would you give somebody who hopes to study it?
Yes, absolutely. So for me, the main benefits, as I will echo Zeynep's thoughts, that it is really connecting with a diverse set of people all around the world. But in addition to that, I would say that the connection between the students really informs the work that you are doing throughout the course and the sort of the different perspectives that you receive from the different lecturers and the different students help to inform and sort of develop your own ideas about what the coursework what the coursework does actually look like in practice in the real world. I must admit that I was very pleasantly surprised. My preconceptions about the coursework were that it would be very similar to other courses I had done. I would say that this is not the case. It is very much more engaging and more interactive than I have previously experienced with other courses. So I would say that is a major part of it's a foundation of the coursework throughout all the course.
Brilliant, thank you. Julia, a general question for you. Do you see a lot of variation in how your student cohorts interact and coalesce to form a group?
Sorry, I need to mute. So we do have, so in terms of what a typical week looks like, they do have the opportunity to form a bond and to have peer-reviewed feedback. They usually set up a WhatsApp group before even the start of the course. So they do give themselves a lot of support. They support themselves because they have the yearly discussion forums highlights that the value of peer learning community. So they do use the forums a lot, and they have also opportunity to bond because we set up group-based activities such as debates and discussions. So the live sessions are usually quite a good opportunity for students to have to enjoy live teaching, but also to enjoy peer feedback and to exchange thoughts and opinion. And they also continue to support each other after the course most of the times because they told me so. And they usually get to have quite a nice bonding that goes beyond the academic support. Usually it comes from the VLE discussion forums, could be the general forum, but also could be a specific forum linked to a specific school day. And usually they use the WhatsApp group and actual exchange and group-based activities during the live session. So we have quite a few points of actual contact. It also depends on the cohort personality. We have some students that are really good to establish connections, in spite of the virtual learning environments. But they're really happy to be the group admin, and we have some students that remain a little bit more isolated, and they do enjoy the independent sort of more individual, intimate learning process. Maybe that's also one reason they chose the course, but so it depends, but usually they do have points of contact.
Thank you. I'm going to throw this question to the two students we have here so we don't get an academic pre-prepared answer. The question is, what type of learners do you see on your courses in terms of their demographics, career stage, age, gender, etc.? So what are the other students you're working with really like? So Clara, let's start off with you.
Yes, of course. So I think I mentioned before that there are all sorts of academic backgrounds, engineer, technology. But in addition to that, there's really good balance of male and female participants. And I would say that there's great racial representation, gender representation, also minorities, which is really, really encouraging to see, and helps me to learn more about what their situations are around the world as well. So, and the regional perspectives, for example, we were doing a discussion the other day, and I was asking what one of the students from India thought and what one of the students from the UK thought. And so I think the regional aspect of it can really help to inform some of the discussions that you have in the sessions, which then goes on to inform the essay work that you do later.
Great. Nella, what about you?
I think Clara has summarized that really perfectly. I can, based only on the group that we had, I can say that we had people that just started studying to people that were retired. We had very, very international group, all the way from India to I think it was Canary Islands. No, maybe even US, no? So we were really like diverse groups. So we were like, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. So it was really, really nice. I would say that there is not, you don't feel like you will not find a diversity in the group, because it's very, very nice to see. Anytime when there's discussion, people can really put the cultural, the geographical, as well as their personal ideas and experiences into it. So I would say we never really experienced that somebody was very close-minded, or that they were like groups that were always in the same kind of mindset. So I think the diversity was very, very, very high.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nella. Raj, we have a series of questions in the chat, the Q&A function, sorry, for you. I'm interested in the business online course. I'm currently not working and have been out of education and work for many years. I've already got GCSEs level 2 and 3 business and admin apprenticeship. Would I be eligible to do this course with my current qualifications? And that progresses to when the qualifications were studied. And what would be the progression outcomes of completing the business online course?
Great. Okay, so I can take all of those as one, relatively easy, I would like to think, to answer. If you have level 2 and 3 business and admin background, this is a logical progression because we are talking about a level 4 course. So that's a nice, easy one to answer. It says here your work experience between 2011 and 2014. That's actually great because work experience gives you context, which allows you to argue better. And you can then tell us, perhaps, as much as we are going to be telling you, whether the theory fits practice or whether the practice fits theory. And we can have a nice little discussion and debate because of that. And the progression outcome of completing the business online course, well, on top of getting an undergraduate certificate, there is a possible pathway, as Nigel mentioned earlier, to progress to the advanced diploma. This is at Cambridge, and of course, you may be able to take that certificate and take it elsewhere and say, hey, what do you think of this? And who knows where that might lead. So
thanks, Raj. I'm very conscious of time. We've got 3 minutes left, and I want to try and fit in another couple of questions. Julia, we've had one from you, but we need a relatively succinct answer. Is the cognitive psychology program an overview of various schools of psychology, or does it focus on particular theories?
Yeah, so it's more of a broad evidence-based overview of key debates and major cognitive theories models. So it's not just, the course is not built around one single theory, and it's not a survey of every school of psychology, obviously. So it's not primarily a tour of psychoanalysis and humanistics. It's mainly, the main frame is cognitive psychology and cognitive neuroscience. The guide, it's basically broad introduction to and solid introduction to cognitive psychology, and it explicitly covers main theories and central debates and key findings as well. So it does include an historical context and an overview, and also it explains well how the cognitive revolution happened. Yeah, so it's mainframe cognitive psychology, but it's not based on just a few theories.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think this may be our last question. We'll see how we do. Victoria, this one is for you. Hi, my question is for Dr. Victoria. I'm currently studying the undergraduate certificate in IR. I really want to study the diploma and hopefully go from there to continue on to a full-time course centered around humanitarianism. What grade would I need to attain this year in order to continue on to the diploma in October? And secondly, what grade do you think would be needed to continue on to a higher level UK institution after that?
Okay, so for you to join the diploma, you need to be able to demonstrate that you are likely to complete the course. So you don't need to achieve a first or the top marks. Somewhere nice in the middle would be terrific. And just so that we can kind of see that you're capable of taking a nice steady progression and handle the workload. Whenever it comes to then translating that into full-time or further study, it depends very much on the program you're aiming for. If you're trying to get into either Oxford or Cambridge, you would really have to come out top of your class for obvious reasons. But again, it kind of depends what other institutions you're looking at, because not everybody has that kind of requirement. So the next obvious thing to do is to go into the MST, which is the part-time master's program. That is very competitive to get into. And you really do need to really perform very highly. But I know people who went on to study in places like LSE and kind of had more at the upper middle range of marks. It very much depends on what it is that you're aiming for. But if you want to get in touch and have a slightly more in-depth conversation about this, I'm more than happy for you to reach out. And I think that's not a problem, would it be, Nigel?
Not at all. I have one last question, which I'm going to ask for each of our students, student participants. I think it would be really nice to actually finish this presentation by referring to our students. And the question is this: what preconceptions did you have about the course before you applied? And the follow-up, were there particular thoughts that discouraged you from applying, e.g., imposter syndrome. So Clara, over to you first. What were your preconceptions before you applied? Were you fearful about imposter syndrome?
Yes, well, I think I've already partially covered the first part, so I'll just go on to the second part. So was I fearful? On the contrary, I was drawn to the course because of the structure. And the work allows for an academically rigorous course allows for independent work to be conducted, which was very much of interest to me. And this also allowed me to continue my work with the United Nations, as I just said. So, what in conclusion, I would really encourage those interested in learning to apply, because there are no limits here. I think that those who are interested should not feel that their background or their experience is a barrier, because we have very diverse sets of people from all walks of life who are studying even just within my cohort. So I think it is really encouraging to see that this group of people feels that this is an approachable course for them and is doing the coursework well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Clara. Nella, any comments from you on those questions?
Absolutely. Clara, I completely agree with you. I was a bit afraid of the Cambridge name personally, just because I wasn't sure if I'm going to be able to keep up with the workload while working at the same time. But luckily, from like the first minute I entered the course, I understood that this is made for this. Like, you are supposed to be able to handle the workload and it's all manageable. I was also fearful, as I said, because I'm not from business background. I was like, oh my goodness, I'll have so many stupid questions. Like, maybe I shouldn't even try. But then after understanding that people are coming from so many different backgrounds, from fashion, business, some already have their own businesses. And it was so nice to see that they were all very welcoming. And even my questions from somebody that was maybe not from the field was welcomed and was really good. So even though you may be feeling a bit skeptical at first, or maybe scared to apply because you are not the perfect fit, I would say, and I encourage you to do so, because this program is exactly for that. The program is supposed to teach you how to do that. You're not supposed to go there as somebody that knows it, because then don't apply if you know all of it. That's not the purpose of the program.
Brilliant. I think that's a really good way to bring this to an end. My experience in Cambridge over many years is nobody's the perfect fit. What PACE is trying to do is make PACE fit our incredibly diverse students and meet their needs. And that's a really nice way to think about it. Don't be afraid of applying. Think about joining a community which is designed especially for you and to meet your needs. And having gone 4 minutes over, I think this is an ideal place for me to thank all of our academic colleagues for joining us. That's Zeynep, Raj, Victoria, and Julia in their favoritism order, just the order you appear on my screen. And a particular thanks to Clara and Nella for being so open, honest, and transparent with us about what it's like to study at PACE. We really value their input. And a final word of thanks to Callie, who came along and explained to us the early enrolment package, and of course to Matt for facilitating this whole session. So without further ado, thank you so much, and we'll draw to the session to a close there. Thanks, everyone.